And we're back after some minor technical difficulties. We are back on track. And Adam, you were saying?
Right. Yeah, we were talking about the benefit of permanent intercept in a deck like this, the Rachel Brandywine deck. And also how... oh, sorry, I lost the track of it.
Exactly. We were talking about why Adam said that he would elect not to play as much transient intercept, and the big cost of tapping through telepathic misdirection.
Right. Yeah. So, in my opinion, most of the time you want to play a telepathic misdirection with one of the sidekicks. That's Victoria or Zoe, since the cost of tapping them is not as great as the cost of tapping Rachel. And something that will make up for the transient intercept, if you say remove some telepathic misdirection or my enemy's enemy, is that you can play with vast wealth to be able to get equipments out faster. And this is kind of good, kind of bad. It's an additional master, so it can clog your hand. But on the other hand, you get both the bowl and the sport bike on Rachel a lot quicker.
How do you go about the problem with getting the homunculus? Is it just 3 in the? Just this 3? Is it a big problem before you get it out?
Right. I think you manage quite well even before you get the homunculus out, since you can still untap with second tradition. It just requires that you block something, so you won't be able to untap in Grand Prey and Grand Predator's turn normally. So it's a bit of a problem, but as long as you get it out eventually, as long as you get it out sometime during the 5-player game, I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
Since you can rely on second tradition and other wakes in the meantime to gain additional actions.
Right.
You get the real oomph out of the deck when you can do it with homunculus and possibly get even more actions through second tradition if you manage to block something as well out of turn.
And ankle cog, but no, it doesn't require.
Ankle cog is more or less the same as Madness Network. It's good to have the ankle cog as safety.
Can you do 2 actions in one? 2 actions in one turn with ankle cog and Madness Network?
You just need that with the Madness Network.
As long as you're untapped and you're not doing the non-repeat action rule, you're not violating.
Okay, so it's not. It's just the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't affect the repeat action rule. You say, well, I do it with the ankle cog, and now I do it with the.
It do affect. NRA states that you can only, for instance, bleed once each turn. So if you're bled once, you have bled once. But if you're untapped through Madness Network, you're allowed to take an additional action, as long as it's not a bleed, in this particular example.
That's where I was going. Anywho. So, what about the crypt then? It's just, do you have any other sidekicks that worth mentioning, or?
I think, actually, or at least my gut tells me that this Milo is a bad choice in this crypt. Probably be a lot better to include an additional Victoria. We touched a bit on this in part 1, because Victoria's special being so strong with Madness Network and the Edge. There you have a really reliable bloat engine that doesn't jam the library. Since the combo with this deck is kind of long. You need the Bowl, you need Homunculus, you need Earth Melds, you need some transient intercept, maybe some stealth. The combo is rather long to get it to fit. It's very strong to have the bloat engine in the crypt instead, and in that way, it doesn't disrupt your draw.
Yeah. Okay. So Adam, then, how do you play it?
It's kind of tricky, really. Of course, you want to get as many parts of the setup out as fast as possible, and that's just a matter of playing the cards as you get them. Menace Network is obviously more important than Perfectionist, since you have 10 blood to spare, or what to say, you have 10 blood to waste on Rachel before she's actually emptied. But other than that, you just play them as you get them, and permanents are more powerful than bleeds normally. And then it's just a matter of trying to untap as much as you possibly can and still survive. And that can be quite tricky, actually. It's really hard to explain it on air, and I'm not sure if I can actually do it. But there are some small tricks that you can do, and that's, say, and it's mostly, it comes down to the impulse. Say it's your predator's turn. Your predator is like, okay, he has an untapped Rachel, I have no minions. Oh, I have a few minions up on tap, but I don't have enough stealth. They'll pass the impulse to you. You get to take an action with Rachel. And then she's tapped. And then it comes back to your predator. He has the option of acting. And then you can block and play Earth Meld and then untap. And then you get another option to act. So trying to get those kind of untaps out of other players, like tricking them into thinking that they have a chance of going through you, or that you don't have enough Earth Meld, say, it's really, really strong. You get to hunt some, which makes you able to push more, because in a deck like this, you can what's it called? You can make your blood on Rachel become pool damage in a way that's not necessarily as simple in other decks. You
convert the blood to pool damage.
Yeah, exactly. You can make sure that you, like, say if you can untap every single turn, you can increase lots of your pool damage, but to do that you need to conserve your blood quite a lot. You can't be wasting blood unnecessarily. And trying to maximize the damage you can and minimize the blood you lost, it comes down to like lots of different choices along the way.
Okay. So in essence, blood management is very important in this, and try to calculate how much blood an actual course of action results in, how big of a blood loss. Say, if you block and you don't have an Earth Meld on hand, or elect not to play it, then you have to play a second tradition later on, and maybe take one additional damage, etc. So you have to calculate where you're at, blood-wise.
Okay. How is it in ousting, then? I mean, do you need to keep a steady pace of ousting, or just it's hard to launch with this kind of a deck, Adam?
You need to just stay on target, to quote a classic movie, and try to bleed as much as you possibly can. And this is why why I say it's important to try to get the trick out, or the setup out, during the 5-player table. Since as players are ousted, you get fewer actions. So if you can get the first oust with this deck, you get your setup quite quickly, and you get to start bleeding 5 times each round. You can bleed quite quickly. But if you're hindered some way in the setup, people manage to block, say, the homunculus, or don't give you the option of using second traditions to untap, or getting combat, or whatnot. You can be quite slow, and then you might not be able to get a trick out for the 3-player game, and then it's really hard to try and oust.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you don't need to do as much pool damage if there's only 3 players left in the game.
Yeah, but that the part of the 5-player game should, I would like to emphasize this a bit more, because in the 5-player game, say you don't have Enklikog in play, that's Rachel making 10 pool damage, and 10 pool damage is a lot, and that's one turn, 10 pool damage. And maybe you get 2 turns, and that's 20 pool damage, and it's segmented pool damage as well. So bounces are not an efficient way of defense as they usually are when it comes to normal bleeds. Because taking 20 pool damage is normally 3 or 4 actions, and in this case it's 10 actions. So you have that benefit as well if you get the combo early enough.
Yeah.
So, what's his main weaknesses, Isak?
Pentex.
Yeah, see, this deck doesn't
very,
pack
very
Pentex.
sensitive to Pentex. You have Greger Andersen, and he's a good sidekick because he's allowed to play second tradition. The Auspex mini Winnies and midcaps, they're okay, but they can't play second tradition, which is the bulk of your defense. Intercept-wise, they can play 1 or 2 bounces for intercept and defend you in that way, or even bounce, obviously. But you might actually have a hard time getting Rachel out of Pentex, since, as you can see in the deck list, there's not a lot of stealth, and if you want to build this deck, you can't really have a lot of stealth, because you rely on tap leading in a sense that you want to use your excessive amount of untaps, earth melts, and actions to get your bleeds through, rather than stealthing them through. So, Pentex is the real issue here, and I also think that's what makes this deck a bit balanced, because I think you actually do have to build a deck with a master package so that you have a way of handling Pentex, i.e. playing Pentex yourself or Suddens to counter Pentex's played on you.
Adam? Any other weaknesses?
Staying untapped is actually really, really good against this deck. Since it is a tap lead deck, it does have Obfuscate, but it's, as we said, not excessive amounts, not even huge amounts. So staying untapped is a good way of defending yourself. But it still only bleeds for 2 or 3, so it's not as good as defending yourself, say, against Vigner's tap lead. But it will give you some time, and that can be helpful. And I think most importantly, you need to... Becoming blocked makes the Rachel player have to either play Earthmelds, which she might not want to play, or to take damage, which of course you don't want to play. The Earthmelds are like... They're offensive and defensive at the same time, as we've talked about earlier.
Yeah. I see this one packs 14 Earthmeld. I know you packed about 20 when you played your deck, so
yeah,
it's about proportions.
I think it's just how offensive you want to try to be, because most Rachel decks will have enough to defend themselves, but to include more Earthmelds can make you be more more liberal with playing Earthmelds, which makes you be easier for you to do them aggressively. That is, play them against your prey to untap and get another action. Examples of other actions in this deck which is quite nice addition actually, is the Judgment, Camarilla Segregation, which is like something that you could use.
I don't recognize the card.
It doesn't see a lot of play, but essentially you get punished if you play any non-Camarilla vampires by taking 1 pool damage each turn.
Nice.
Yeah, so in a way it's a bit like an Anarchy Vault, not as strong, but in a way.
Yeah. So if you're bleeding and you're being blocked, you can play an Earthmeld to be able to play this card. So it makes your Earthmelds possible to be a bit more offensive with them, or like Earthmeld a bit more offensive of a card.
Yeah. How is the card flow issue? Anyone?
I think I play with Heart of Initiative when I play this deck, but Masters is a huge problem. You want to include Madness Network and Perfectionist, and as I said, you want to include Direct Intervention. You would probably want to include, say, 3 Washers and 2 Pentex of your own.
Guardian Angel is a good fit, right?
Yeah, you can conserve blood with it, and you can, of course, you get a bit better blocking capabilities. say the protein skill card is really good for Greger, since that he becomes a like a real sidekick to Rachel. There's so much cards that, like masters, are really good in this deck, but they're also the problem, of course, since you can only play one master no matter how many actions you get out of turn.
Yeah.
So you want the master package to be sub 10, I think, but it's really hard to make it sub 10.
Yeah, you spoke earlier about getting permanent intercept, and that would like actually help the deck a lot.
Yeah, but this is a very defensive deck. If you take a look at a deck list, there's basically only one Kindred Spirits, and you actually don't need to play the Kindred Spirits. That's the only part that's transient pool damage, so to speak. So you probably won't get ousted very easily. A critical Pentix is very devastating for the deck, obviously, but other than that, you will stay alive. The deck is constructed that way. The problem is winning, i.e. ditching out pool damage and bleeding your praise until you win. That is the problematic part. And as Adam said, that's where you want to get the setup, because the setup allows you to bleed rather than to block, because you're capable of blocking as is.
Yeah.
And I think that's might be a common misconception that the combo is a defensive combo. That's actually not the case. The combo is what allows you to play so heavily on defense when it comes to the transient cards. And when you get the combo, you can start bleeding. And when you get into Cog out, you actually bleed for 3 each player's turns, obviously, which is strong.
Yeah, so how important is the Madness Network in this deck? Is it worth trying to get it out? Like trying to what's it called?
Remove it?
Yeah, trying to remove the Madness Network for other players, or it's just gonna get blocked, or
it's likely going to get blocked, but if you think this deck is a threat to you, it's still a worthwhile action, since it costs either to play Blood or Earth Belts, which, as we touched upon earlier, is the resources of this deck. It's what it's the bread and butter, or it's the juice of this deck and make that play one additional Earth Melt could totally mess up the turn of that player. So remove the Madness Network. I think it's really advisable if you think this deck is going to be a threat to you, of course. Say if you're playing a Master Module deck and you're able to play 2 Pentixes in the same turn, probably not that much of a threat. But
why would you play? No, because it would get washed, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have a few actions that you can't really do anything good with, just taking 1 or 2 actions towards the Madness Networks puts some pressure on the Rachel deck and makes the Rachel deck a bit more vulnerable long term.
Would you recommend it like as a table, if you to try and take away the Madness Network when you see the Rachel Brandywine on the deck, Isaac?
Not the first thing you do. There are a lot of tier 1 decks, and it totally depends on the table. If there are 4 crappy deck and 1 plays Rachel Brandywine, you need to get it out. So, but if you think that everybody is playing tier 1 decks, you probably won't be needing to put that much pressure on this deck, because it's rather slow. If you get the combo very early on, and you see it making a lot of pool damage early on, and you see the setup it's good and it's doing very nicely, then you could ditch out a few actions and make some effort table-wise. But if you have a scenario where everybody is playing tier 1 decks, this is just another tier 1 deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that essence, it's not like Smiling Yak, which is an auto-win after, say, turn 5 for the player with a Smiling Yak.
Yeah.
That's not the case with Rachel, in my opinion.
So, I just see now that this deck is carrying Crocodile's Tongue. I thought it was kind of odd, Adam.
It's a non-cost action modifier that is really good against allies, which could be a big problem for this deck. As I said, staying untapped can slow this deck quite a lot, and an ally deck is one of the kind of decks that gets the most minions out.
Yeah.
So, presumably Mark Lohman in this deck, or in this tournament, disliked allies, or weenies at least.
Okay.
Which is also reflected in the fact that it includes Scourge of the Enochians in the deck. So I think it's just to hurt the weenie hordes a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So, are there any other any other types of ways to play against this deck? I mean, you could go after the blood. I remember when you played the Rachel Brandywine deck, Adam, and I played Vampiric Disease and then Hunger Moon, which slowed you down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's well, that's also very special circumstances, of course. But going after the
going after blood is probably could be a good like one timely grapple and a hit for 5 could be game over. Not instant game over, but long term. It will set you back too much to regain that blood, or even in worst case get out of torpor.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't have grapple, you don't stand a chance, I think, of beating this deck in combat, because like I can't really imagine a deck that is so heavy on psychs that you actually get past the earth melts.
But some pre-range damage. Dish out.
The True Brewer deck.
Yeah.
It's like the True Brewer deck grapples and weenie hordes. That's really, really hurtful for this deck, I think.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that can actually oust it, like straight out, just overwhelm it and kill it.
Yeah.
Other kinds of deck will need to work for their oust, so to speak.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, some heavy bleeding with a lot of minions, of course.
Or just bleeds for one.
Yeah, but yeah, of course. But yeah, then you can't send it away.
Yeah, bleeds for ones. Say if you do 4 bleeds for ones each turn against this deck will die. It does not have enough earth melts to survive that. It will start to be able to have to hit for 1, and then when you start hitting for 1, you'll be losing blood so quickly.
Yeah. Okay, probably not, but are there any variations of this deck? I mean, this is very Rachel Brandywine specific, but could you do it with someone else?
Before Rage were released, I know that people did this with skill cards, protein skill cards, and Greger, but that's just plain worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's much variation to do. Like Adam said, Wasp Velf is an option. The amount of Earth plays you choose to play, you could include camera phones, Ivory Bow, Heart of Nichitus. You could play focus more on Form of Mist rather than Obfuscate Stealth.
You can decrease the reaction package a lot, I think. You could decrease it to 4 on the key V or something like that, and try to rely on permanent intercept and earth melts. But I think that's really risky.
Yeah, but some second tradition as well.
It costs blood. So if you want to be like super offensive Rachel Brandywine, I think just going for a handful of wakes for those times where people play Misdirection, and just relying on earth melts for every single wake. It's an option, but
I think that would be fun to see if it worked. Actually,
the problem is that you need the setup. You need Homunculus to be able to survive in a deck like that. So possibly not that good. But one interesting card to include is Aura Reading, to be able to cycle your hand even during other players' turn.
Yeah, now it comes. It's bad in the other deck. This deck is kind of good.
Yeah, I think it's really good in this deck.
Yeah.
So as I said, the combo is kind of a lot of cards. So including Aura Reading is not a bad option. I'm not sure if I play it in the one I played, but it definitely is a good inclusion if you have the place for it. Or
Yeah.
card.
Yeah. But I think if you have, we know a little bit more about card flow in combat nowadays, so I think it would be a good addition to almost any Rachel deck.
Very
Yes.
likely.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we don't have anything more to say about this Rachel deck.
I feel like I've exhausted the subject.
It's really special. It's best to probably best to try it out to
Yeah.
see how it works.
It's a hassle to work against. I know at tables when you play decks.
Or at least it's a hassle to work against psychologically.
Yeah.
In practice, the deck is strong, but it's not broken in any way.
Oh.
Just
Yeah.
pick a tier 1 deck yourself, and you will see that this deck will probably face a lot of problems.
Yeah, voting will of course be a problem. Any stealth voters would be a problem, I believe.
Very well-timed banishment with obfuscate.
Yeah, and then you're done for.
Yeah. So done for.
Yeah, and it of course has all the problems that a superstar deck has.
Yeah.
Because it's
Pentex and Inner Circle members playing banishment.
then you're screwed.
Yes.
So yeah, that was Rachel, and some heavy abuse of the card Madness Network. Now we will go on and talk a little bit about a deck with a French name that I can't pronounce, so I won't even try, but Orian is the author of this tournament-winning deck.
Yes.
It's up for grabs. Any one of you who wants to take it?
I actually did Google translate the name, and it means aromas and flavors from France. I don't know if that is a kind of joke, but
You will have the honors then.
The
Mighty
basic
power
idea.
of Google.
Yeah, the basic idea of this deck is you bring Madness Network into play, obviously, and then you use reversals of fortune when it's your prae's turn to reverse the gameplay order, so the next turn will be yours again, and then when it's your turn, you play another reversal of fortune, and you change the turn back. And you keep doing that. When you do this, you play Brainwash on your prey script. If your prey brings out Vampire, you play Pentex on that. Essentially, you lock your prey down. You deny the other 3 players the opportunity to play Vitus overall, and you keep bouncing with the prey. Meantime, Smiling Jack and or a Constant Revolution gains counters. And when you've done this back and forth, either because you end doing this, either because you lose the combo, that is, you run out of reverses fortunes, or you decide my Smiling Jack has 7 counters or 6 counters, something like that, and then you let the other 3 players play the game. And what will happen is that they probably transferred 1 or 2 turns each, then they will be maybe 5 or 6 turns behind you, and they will just take a lot of pool damage, obviously, because the Smiling Yak with 6 counters on it, essentially from turn 2, for their point of view, is game over. And that's the basic idea. The problem is execution.
So, Adam, how would you go about executing this?
First thing is to get Malkavian out.
And of course, I have the deck up. I believe the crypt is really small, so you'll always get one out. The problem would be if you're starting. Yeah, but anyway, go on.
Get one Malkavian out, and another minion if you can as well. Get the Madness Network, and start playing Reversal Fortunes in your praise turn. And something that's really, really important to make this work, to make it viable, since this deck is actually quite weak in a stand-up kind of play. it has 1 smiling and 1 constant revolution for ousting and no block. So in a like a regular, everyone gets to play their own game, this deck won't be able to do anything, of course. It's weak like that. But giving your prey the option of giving your prey turns and then brainwashing his minions. I'll bring up brainwash. Brainwashing his uncontrolled region is to deny him minions. Of course, you want to do this if you started transferring on some particular minion. First, it says has 4 counters on this vampire, you put it on that vampire. Other than that, you just try to brainwash everything, and as soon as he turns up and buys in a new vampire from his crypt, you brainwash that as well. So make sure that he doesn't get any minions. And if he do get any minions, you want to Pentex that one. There's 4 Pentex of Version in this deck, so you will have Pentex quite quickly. And then he can't remove the Pentex, of course, because he only has that minion. And if he would have gotten another minion, you want to have Osson, and you can include Carlton as well, to block anything that minion tries to do, or rush him before he gets to do anything.
Yeah. So this is like one of the... and so no minions, and then just a lot of things on smiling, and then just let it hit the table.
Of course, you'll be getting pulled from the edge. You have 1 paired shift, not that much, but the only thing that costs pull here is a few master cards and feeding the smiling. So if you get the edge, you will be able to turn lots of minions, probably 6 or 7, possibly even 8 minions in play, and bleeding for 8 when no one has any minions is pull damage as well. So you can oust by that method too.
Yeah. And this is what like the most abuse I've ever seen in this card game. It's so...
Yeah. It's so very, very abusive.
Yeah. As a personal side note, what do you think about this much abuse in the game? Exactly.
I've been to 1 tournament where 1 player played this deck. I did not face him myself. I only know that he performed really badly. Something like 0 points or maybe a VP or something like that. Orian is an exceptional player. He's probably one of the best players in the world. So him being able to win with this concept twice, if I'm not mistaken, is I think says more about him than the deck itself. Because as you hear the description and you think, oh, this is really broken. But it's only broken in theory. You have to put it to practice. And it gets really hard. I know I talked to him about this deck, and he said you from time to time have to make very weird deals, like because you can give the table away and sell yourself for 2 VPs, and so you let your prey play his game, and you say, okay, as long as I get like 2 VPs and the heads up, you get the other 3 VPs, and that's a deal you can make. And then if your prey, for instance, slips up, you break the deal, or if he slips up in some other way, you try to make the best of the situation. Stuff like that you have to take into account when playing this deck. But the combo is so long, and you have to bounce with your prey so many times, so you probably either won't be able to make the bouncing, or you make a slip up and make something wrong. So, in my opinion, this is not a very strong deck. 2, I might be wrong here, because as I said, I actually never played it myself. I've only like seen it and talked about it and thought about it. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, I actually agree a lot with Isaac. 4 other players that can sudden or wash or bring out extra minions, or if they play a crypt acceleration and bring out the title vampires at first, say, it's not uncommon at all to see Silas Valley answer on the first turn. And what do you do if you don't draw one of the Malkavian Justicars at that point?
Yeah.
So and also sudden reversals, of course, and if Prey draws his own Pentex, he can get the Pentex away, and like drawing his own Pentix and having stealth himself, he will be able to remove the Brainwashers and start bringing out vampires. It's really hard to control them like that. Also,
And just two vote cards on the table, which will nullify the reversal of fortune.
yeah, exactly. It only requires like once to be able to make mess everything up. So it kind of requires strict control of every player around the table, and doing that with 4 other players, it's not that easy. You see tactics like this in games like Magic, but Magic only has 1 opponent that can try to stop you. 4 opponents makes this like so much more unlikely. I've actually exchanged some mails with Orian concerning this deck, and I think that was one of the things he said. It's really wonky to try to get the deck to function as well as well, it actually never does function as well as we've described it now. You play it by ear and try to make deals and just see what happens, more or less.
Yeah, but it's awesome in theory.
Yeah.
Yes, in theory it's the best deck in the game.
So anyway, that's a lot of abuse. So to summarize, what do we think about the Madness Network, Isak?
It's great, and it's very fun to play, and I have to formulate this. It allows you to play toolboxy decks without combat. If you ever want to try that out, because you need the actions because you gain extra actions from Madness Network, but you need defense to defend the Madness Network and get the actions out of turn, either by untapping through, say, Majesty or Earthmeld, or playing Obedience or Mental Maze to stay untapped after a successful block.
Yeah.
So I really like the card, enjoy it, and I think it brings a lot of depth and possible strategies to the game that I find very entertaining.
Yeah.
And mind tickling as well.
Adam?
No, it's not that much to like evaluate the card. I don't think like much positive or negative about it. But it's really unique. It adds something to the game which actually does not exist. Well, the ankle cog has part of it, but it's only part of it. If players start to be able to untap multiple times to act with it, the deck or the card can be really, really strong, or in some cases it's really, really weak.
Why don't we see it with more freak drives? Adam?
Because
Or Isak?
I think that's because if you play freak drive heavy decks, you don't play a lot of defense, i.e. reactions, and you need reactions to actually be able to defend the Madness Network.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of redundant as well. That freak drives make you get extra actions. Madness Network, well, make you be able to get use out of extra actions that you wouldn't have gotten use out of other ways. So in a way, freak drives and Madness Network serve the same kind of function. So in a deck that you would include freak drives and Madness Network, it's probably more fruitful to only include one of them. It becomes a bit redundant, so like I said.
Yeah. So anyway, that was this week's show. So thanks a lot for this time, and thank everyone for watching. And remember, if you have any thoughts, comments, or ideas, you can post them on our Facebook page or send an email to the address below, which is causeampersandeffect@gmail.com. Remember to like us on Facebook and of course subscribe to our YouTube account. Afterwards, we will post a thread on the Beacon.net where you can continue the discussion about Madness Network. Next week we will have Ben Peel as a special guest, and we will talk a little bit about the design and how the new set is actually going to be, and maybe some other stuff. So have a good week, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.